Imagine discovering ancient tablets written thousands of years ago describing powerful beings who descended from the sky, taught humanity advanced science, mathematics and technology, and shaped civilization itself. It sounds like something straight from a Hollywood script, right? But incredibly, this is exactly what the ancient Sumerians recorded on clay tablets, etched painstakingly in a language that historians have spent decades decoding. The Sumerians flourished around 4,500 to 1,900 BC in a land known today as Iraq, building what historians widely recognize as humanity's first true civilization. They gave the world writing, developed advanced mathematical systems, established complex legal codes, and even mapped the heavens with astonishing precision. They lived in thriving cities like Ur and Uruk, constructed elaborate temples known as ziggurats, and created irrigation systems that transformed desert landscapes into fertile farmland. In short, the Sumerians weren't just slightly ahead of their time, they were thousands of years ahead, laying foundations for knowledge we still use today. But what makes the Sumerians truly mysterious and sparks endless debates among historians is their detailed accounts of the Anunnaki. According to their ancient texts, the Anunnaki were beings who descended from the heavens, possessed extraordinary knowledge, and directly interacted with humanity. These accounts speak of these beings guiding humanity's development, imparting knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, agriculture, and governance, fields in which the Sumerians indeed demonstrated unparalleled advancement. Naturally, mainstream historians interpret these stories as myths, symbolic tales intended to explain natural phenomena or provide spiritual guidance. Yet the detailed nature of these descriptions raises intriguing questions. Were the Anunnaki merely symbolic figures representing gods and natural forces? Or could these accounts preserve distorted memories of actual historical events, possibly interactions with more advanced human cultures, or even something we have yet to understand? In this video, we aren't chasing conspiracy theories or wild speculations, but we're diving deep into real archaeological discoveries, ancient tablets filled with extraordinary claims, and compelling mysteries historians still can't fully explain. Were the Anunnaki simply mythical gods, symbolic stories, or could they represent faded memories of something far more astonishing? The truth remains elusive, but one thing is certain. These tablets exist, their translations are respected, and their depictions of advanced knowledge remain puzzlingly accurate. So who or what exactly were the mysterious Anunnaki? Were they truly just mythical figures created by humanity's imagination? Or could they be remnants of a real chapter in human history that's been forgotten or even deliberately hidden? You'll want to keep watching, because unraveling the Anunnaki mystery might just challenge everything we thought we knew about human history. Let's jump in.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
The foundation, ancient Sumer. If we really want to unravel the mystery of the Anunnaki, we first have to talk about the remarkable civilization behind these legends, the ancient Sumerians. Around 4,500 to 1,900 BC, in an area now known as Iraq, the Sumerians built one of the world's very first great civilizations, laying foundations we still depend on today. The place they called home, Mesopotamia, which means the land between rivers, sat between two important rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates. This area was hot, dry, and tough to live in, but the Sumerians didn't just survive, they turned it into a thriving region. They created sophisticated irrigation systems to carry river water across the harsh desert, turning dry plains into fertile fields filled with crops and bustling cities. Imagine ancient cities popping up in the middle of nowhere, full of markets, busy streets, temples, and lively people exchanging goods and ideas. Some of these cities became legendary, like Ur, Uruk, and Eridu. Uruk in particular was among the earliest great cities in human history, home to tens of thousands of people. Life there was dynamic, with a busy marketplace, lively religious festivals, and impressive buildings. It was truly the heart of ancient civilization. But what really set the Sumerians apart was their groundbreaking inventions. Around 3200 BC, they created the first known writing system, cuneiform, by pressing wedge-shaped marks into soft clay tablets. Originally used to record trade deals and livestock numbers, cuneiform soon expanded to include laws, religious stories, and even astronomy. Thanks to these clay tablets, we have an incredible window into their world, moving us from guessing about prehistory to reading actual historical records. The Sumerians weren't just great writers, they were exceptional mathematicians and astronomers. They created a counting system based on the number 60, which we still use today when telling time and measuring angles. Even more impressively, their astronomers carefully studied the sky and tracked the movements of planets and stars accurately, despite having no telescopes or modern tools. Exactly how they achieved such precise observations remains a mystery to historians even today. And when it came to engineering, the Sumerians built astonishing structures known as ziggurats, huge stepped pyramids made from millions of mud bricks. Imagine massive towers painted in bright colors, rising high above their cities, visible for miles around. The ziggurat at Ur is still considered an architectural wonder, built with impressive skill to stand firm for thousands of years. The Sumerians were also highly practical. They invented wheeled vehicles, designed sophisticated irrigation channels, and built defensive walls and drainage systems to keep their cities safe and thriving. Many things we consider basic today, like organized cities, formal education, and even accounting systems, can trace their origins back to these ingenious ancient people. Archaeologists are still discovering surprising new things about Sumerian cities. At the ancient city of Ur, for instance, researchers found an incredible royal cemetery in the 1920s, filled with dazzling artifacts like golden jewelry, elaborate musical instruments, and beautiful figurines. These discoveries proved that the Sumerians were not just clever inventors, but also artists and craftspeople who created a rich culture that continues to amaze historians. But beyond their practical accomplishments, the Sumerians were deeply spiritual. They worshipped gods who represented natural forces like rivers, storms, and harvests. And among these divine figures, the tablets frequently mention the Annunaki, beings who supposedly descended from the heavens to guide and influence humanity. The Annunaki weren't just minor gods in passing mentions. They appeared repeatedly in detailed stories, interacting directly with people and shaping the course of human history according to Sumerian beliefs. Today, thousands of these ancient tablets have been discovered, translated, and carefully studied by historians worldwide. While many contain straightforward records of trade and daily life, others tell stories of cosmic struggles, creation myths, and interactions between humans and powerful beings like the Anunnaki. This leaves us with a captivating mystery. Did the Sumerians' impressive technology, astronomy, and mathematical skills develop purely from their own experimentation and ingenuity? Or might their detailed myths hold faint memories of real, forgotten events? Could the stories of the Anunnaki represent encounters or interactions that we don't yet fully understand. Keep watching, because what we're about to explore might completely change the way you look at human history. Decoding the Anunnaki. When archaeologists first translated the ancient Sumerian tablets, one word appeared repeatedly, capturing everyone's curiosity: the Anunnaki. Simply put, Anunnaki means those who came down from the heavens, or sometimes just those of royal blood. But who, or maybe even what, were these mysterious beings described in such detail thousands of years ago? According to the Sumerians, the Anunnaki were powerful figures who descended from the sky and played a central role in guiding and shaping human civilization. They believed the Anunnaki lived high above in a place beyond human reach, yet constantly influenced events on Earth from this elevated position. These beings reportedly shared knowledge, introduced new skills, and directly intervened in the lives of ordinary people. Of the many Anunnaki mentioned in ancient tablets, three stand out: Anu, Enlil, and Enki. Anu was considered the supreme leader, a god of the heavens who typically observed humanity from afar. Think of him as a distant, wise ruler who watched carefully but rarely got directly involved. Then there's Enlil, Anu's son, who couldn't have been more different. Often described as powerful and strict, Enlil directly shaped human affairs. He was the god associated with air, storms, and authority, frequently interacting with humans and often holding them accountable for their actions. In fact, Sumerian texts attribute massive, devastating floods to Enlil, events he used to cleanse humanity when people became troublesome or disobedient. If this story sounds familiar, that's because it closely resembles flood myths found in other cultures, including the biblical account of Noah. Finally, there's Enki, probably the most intriguing Anunnaki of all. Known as the god of water, wisdom, and invention, Enki was portrayed as kind-hearted and protective. According to ancient texts, Enki genuinely cared about humanity, often helping people learn essential skills like agriculture, irrigation, construction, and metalworking. One remarkable story depicts Enki teaching people how to construct advanced irrigation systems, effectively turning dry, barren land into productive farmland. And remarkably, archaeological evidence confirms that the Sumerians indeed built sophisticated irrigation canals that transformed their environment and greatly improved their quality of life. In one particularly fascinating myth called the Council of the Gods, Sumerian tablets describe the Anunnaki holding serious debates about humanity's future. Enlil, frustrated by humans being noisy and rebellious, planned to send a catastrophic flood to wipe them out. Enki, however, secretly intervened to save humanity, warning a hero about the impending disaster and guiding him on how to survive. The parallels between this Sumerian flood myth and similar stories around the world have captivated historians, leaving them wondering if there might be more than coincidence at play here. Interestingly, these powerful Anunnaki weren't depicted simply as distant gods without human feelings. Instead, the tablets vividly portray them as complex beings with relatable emotions. They argued, felt jealousy, showed compassion, and even experienced regret. These surprisingly human traits add depth and intrigue to their myths, raising a big question. Were the Sumerians just creating imaginative stories, or were they describing something deeper, possibly even real historical events? Throughout ancient Mesopotamia, archaeologists have uncovered countless tablets and artistic carvings vividly showing humans interacting closely with the Anunnaki. Some images even show these beings using tools or instruments that appear surprisingly advanced, prompting historians to question whether the myths reflect exaggerated, but genuine memories of encounters with advanced cultures. Could it be that these fascinating stories aren't just symbolic myths or religious traditions, but distorted historical memories of real interactions? Perhaps the Anunnaki were visitors from another region or culture, still human, yet more technologically advanced, leading the Sumerians to see them as divine figures. Or perhaps the Sumerians' accounts were influenced by knowledge inherited from a lost civilization we've yet to fully discover. Archaeological evidence keeps adding layers to this mystery. Sumerian tablets include advanced astronomical calculations, complex mathematics, and sophisticated engineering concepts, knowledge they explicitly credit to teachings from the Anunnaki. While most mainstream historians remain cautious about interpreting myths literally, they acknowledge that the details described match impressively with archaeological findings. Whether viewed as gods, symbolic metaphors, or historical figures remembered in myth, there's no doubt that the Anunnaki have profoundly shaped our view of Sumerian culture and human history. Their stories influenced not only ancient Sumer, but echoed through later civilizations, becoming part of a larger human heritage. But here's the question we can't ignore. If these Anunnaki figures did teach humanity advanced skills and knowledge, exactly how did they do it? Did they personally guide early civilizations, pass down advanced teachings indirectly? Or is there another explanation entirely, one we haven't yet uncovered? Stick around, because what we explore next could reveal insights into history that are even stranger and far more fascinating than anything we've considered so far. The astronomical mystery. One of the most intriguing mysteries about the Sumerians is their astonishing understanding of astronomy, knowledge far beyond what we'd expect from an ancient civilization. Over 5,000 years ago, long before telescopes or modern instruments existed, the Sumerians mapped the night sky with remarkable precision, accurately identifying planets, tracking star patterns, and even predicting astronomical events confirmed by modern science. How exactly did they accomplish this? Picture yourself as an ancient Sumerian, standing beneath the clear, dark desert sky night after night, with nothing but your eyes and basic measuring tools. Amazingly, the Sumerians didn't just casually observe the heavens. They documented precise planetary movements and understood their unique paths. They knew Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn weren't ordinary stars, but distinct planets moving in their own separate orbits, something most cultures wouldn't grasp until much later. Clay tablets uncovered by archaeologists clearly illustrate this astonishing detail. These ancient records not only mention planets, but describe carefully how they move differently from stars. Take Venus, for example. Sumerian astronomers realized thousands of years ago that Venus appeared as both a morning star and an evening star, understanding this long before other ancient cultures recognized these two sightings as the same planet. Their tablets tracked Venus's movements with accuracy, so impressive it still amazes modern scientists. To put this into perspective, imagine asking a random person today to name all the planets. Most might confidently say Pluto, forgetting it's no longer officially considered a planet. Yet thousands of years ago, the Sumerians accurately identified and tracked planets visible from Earth, doing so systematically and consistently without any advanced equipment. Even more surprising, these tablets depict detailed star maps showing constellations exactly as we recognize them today. How did the Sumerians create such precise maps without modern technology? Could it really just be from carefully observing the skies generation after generation? Or did they have access to something else guiding their observations? The secret behind their astronomy was supported by another advanced skill: mathematics. The Sumerians developed a unique numerical system based on the number 60, called the sexagesimal system. This allowed them to calculate complex fractions and large numbers easily, perfect for precise astronomical measurements. The same mathematical legacy lives on today whenever you glance at a clock or measure angles in degrees. Archaeologists have discovered hundreds of tablets filled with detailed mathematical calculations about lunar eclipses, planetary alignments, and even calendars predicting future astronomical events. Among these is the famous Venus tablet of Ammisaduqa, an artifact rooted in earlier Sumerian astronomical traditions dating back to about 1600 BC. This tablet precisely records Venus's cycles, astonishing modern astronomers who marvel at how ancient people managed to predict these cycles accurately without any technology to aid them. But here's the real puzzle historians continue to debate. How exactly did the Sumerians achieve such precise astronomical and mathematical knowledge without modern tools? Most scholars propose the simplest explanation: generations of careful observation, with dedicated scribes meticulously noting celestial movements, gradually refining their understanding over centuries. Yet as reasonable as this explanation sounds, it still leaves some unanswered questions. How did the Sumerians manage to track such subtle movements of distant planets without telescopes? Could careful observation alone account for all their advanced insights? Because of these questions, some researchers suggest another possibility. Maybe the Sumerians inherited some of their astronomical and mathematical knowledge from earlier civilizations, cultures now lost to history. Could ancient societies like those responsible for sites such as Göbekli Tepe, built nearly 12,000 years ago, have influenced Sumerian knowledge, passing down insights through cultural exchanges we haven't fully discovered yet? Then there are the fascinating stories within the tablets themselves, the myths about the Annunaki. These accounts explicitly describe beings from the heavens, teaching humanity advanced astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. Naturally, mainstream historians interpret these stories as symbolic or mythical, but it's intriguing how closely the mythological teachings align with genuine archaeological discoveries. The practical applications of Sumerian astronomy only deepen this mystery. They created the earliest known calendars based precisely on lunar phases, planetary movements, and solar cycles. This allowed them to predict floods, organize planting seasons, time their religious festivals, and run their civilization efficiently. Clearly, their careful sky watching was not just for curiosity. It was crucial for their survival and success. Historians still puzzle over the detailed and accurate astronomical and mathematical information recorded on the clay tablets. Tracking stars is one thing, but predicting planetary movements and astronomical cycles with such precision seems beyond mere human eyesight and simple instruments. Could the Sumerians have learned this through interactions with advanced cultures, or inherited it from civilizations we haven't fully discovered yet? We must ask ourselves, were the Sumerians simply dedicated astronomers and mathematicians, relying purely on patience and observation, or is there something genuinely extraordinary behind their detailed records? Could ancient myths of beings from the heavens contain fragments of real experiences, interactions, or knowledge passed down through generations? As we continue exploring these ancient mysteries, stay tuned, because the deeper we go, the stranger and more fascinating this story becomes. What we uncover next might just rewrite our understanding of human history, theories, and explanations. We've already seen how incredibly advanced the Sumerians' knowledge of astronomy and mathematics was. But this brings us to the biggest mystery of all. How exactly did they gain such precise knowledge? Historians usually explain this as simply generations of careful observation and trial and error. But is that explanation enough to account for everything? Think about it this way. The Sumerians weren't just casually stargazing. They were accurately mapping the skies, predicting planetary movements, and performing mathematical calculations so advanced that it took thousands of years for later civilizations to catch up. Saying they achieved all of this purely through observation seems to overlook just how impressive their accomplishments really were. Many mainstream archaeologists suggest that dedicated groups of ancient astronomers spent their lives carefully studying the skies, passing their knowledge down through countless generations. Imagine ancient teams of astronomers patiently recording each planetary position night after night, year after year, slowly recognizing patterns over long periods of time. This explanation certainly feels logical. It could explain how their knowledge gradually improved. But there's still a problem. How could the Sumerians precisely track subtle planetary movements without telescopes or modern technology? These weren't simple star patterns. These were detailed astronomical cycles and precise mathematical calculations, some of which remain remarkably accurate even today. Could careful observation alone fully explain their detailed understanding? This unanswered question leads us to another interesting theory: cultural diffusion. This concept suggests advanced knowledge spreads from one culture to another through interactions like trade, migration, or exploration. Could it be possible that the Sumerians inherited parts of their astronomy and mathematics from even older, now-forgotten civilizations? Take the mysterious archaeological site Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey as an example. Discovered in the 1990s, this ancient site is over 11,000 years old, far older than Sumer, and features impressively carved stone pillars and sophisticated architecture built at a time historians thought people were only simple hunter-gatherers. Could civilizations like those responsible for Göbekli Tepe have passed down important knowledge, eventually reaching the Sumerians? It's also important to remember that ancient Mesopotamia was a major crossroads connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe. Sumerian cities regularly hosted merchants and travelers from faraway lands. Through these interactions, ideas, knowledge, and technology could have been shared, assembled, and improved upon. Perhaps the Sumerians didn't invent their impressive astronomy and math entirely alone. They may have gradually pieced it together from information shared by different cultures they encountered. Let's visualize just how revolutionary their mathematical abilities were. The Sumerians used geometric concepts thousands of years before the Greeks became famous for geometry. Long before mathematicians like Pythagoras appeared, the Sumerians were already applying advanced geometry in the construction of impressive structures like their ziggurats and complex irrigation systems. Their understanding wasn't just advanced, it was practically groundbreaking. Yet we must also consider the ancient Sumerian myths themselves, especially stories of the Annunaki, beings described as coming down from the heavens and teaching humanity advanced skills and knowledge. Of course, most historians naturally interpret these tales as symbolic myths intended to explain the origins of their civilization in a poetic way. However, it's striking how closely the detailed teachings described in these myths align with the genuine archaeological evidence we found. Could it be that these ancient stories hold distorted memories of real historical interactions? Imagine early humans encountering an advanced culture whose technology or knowledge seemed almost supernatural to them. They might have described such encounters metaphorically as gods descending from the heavens, passing down wisdom and guidance. To be clear, mainstream historians remain skeptical about taking these myths literally. Yet even skeptics admit myths often contain seeds of historical truth. Maybe these Sumerian stories, even if exaggerated, hold small fragments of genuine historical events or encounters we've yet to fully understand. Throughout history, human civilizations have frequently advanced through interactions and cultural exchanges. Each generation builds upon knowledge from those who came before. Why should the Sumerians be any different? Maybe their impressive astronomical and mathematical skills weren't purely self-developed. They might have partly inherited them from earlier civilizations or assembled knowledge from diverse cultural contacts over time. Still, even with cultural diffusion or inherited knowledge considered, something about the Sumerians' precise understanding seems distinctly advanced, too advanced, some might say, to come only from careful observation and interaction alone. Could their tablets reflect events or encounters outside the traditional explanations historians usually offer? Mainstream academics understandably hesitate to entertain such unusual ideas. However, recent discoveries like Göbekli Tepe constantly remind us how little we actually understand about our distant past. Could older civilizations, now lost or forgotten, have left behind knowledge that eventually reached the Sumerians? This leaves us facing three intriguing possibilities. First, the traditional explanation, generations of patient observation alone. Second, cultural diffusion, knowledge inherited through trade or older civilizations. Or third, something more extraordinary, that the ancient myths describing beings descending from the heavens might contain some real historical core, however misunderstood or exaggerated. The last possibility might seem far-fetched at first glance, but history is full of surprises that challenge our assumptions. After all, just decades ago, a site like Göbekli Tepe would have seemed impossible. Today, it's widely accepted. Perhaps the Sumerians gained their impressive knowledge not through mere lucky guesses, but through real historical interactions or events we haven't fully uncovered yet. As we move forward, ask yourself this: could the Sumerians' detailed astronomical knowledge and mathematical brilliance truly have come solely from observation and trial and error? Or might they have learned from interactions, forgotten civilizations, or even misunderstood encounters that history hasn't fully explained yet? Could it even be possible their teachers were something or someone we haven't fully imagined? Keep watching, because what comes next might change your entire perspective on human history. The extraterrestrial hypothesis. Throughout our exploration, we've seen the astonishing accomplishments of the Sumerians: accurate astronomy, sophisticated mathematics, and incredible architectural feats. Naturally, the question arises: how did these ancient people gain such advanced knowledge? Most historians suggest traditional explanations, like generations of careful observation or knowledge passed through trade. Yet there's another intriguing and highly controversial theory that we haven't fully explored. Could the Sumerian stories about beings from the heavens hint at something more extraordinary? Now, before you start picturing aliens landing in flying saucers like in Hollywood movies, let's pause. What we're dealing with here are cryptic ancient texts carved carefully onto clay tablets thousands of years ago, not flashy UFO sightings. But still, these stories describe beings called the Annunaki descending from the heavens to teach humanity advanced science, mathematics, agriculture, and even city planning. Could these tales simply be ancient myths, or might they be faint echoes of genuine historical encounters? Let's consider carefully the actual evidence from these tablets. Numerous ancient Sumerian texts, such as those uncovered in the ruins of cities like Uar and Uruk, describe the Anunnaki in detail. These texts repeatedly emphasize their origins from above, portraying these beings with human-like features but extraordinary capabilities. In several stories, the Anunnaki directly interact with humans, sharing knowledge, shaping civilizations, and in some cases causing significant historical events like floods and city building. Interestingly, these descriptions sometimes sound less like gods and more like advanced individuals passing down specific technical instructions. The Epic of Atrahasis, an ancient Sumerian Babylonian myth, describes these beings advising humanity on irrigation and agriculture with astonishingly accurate practical detail. Similarly, the myth of Enki and Ninmah recounts the deliberate engineering and management of humanity, suggesting beings with highly advanced understanding of biology and genetics, albeit described metaphorically. It's easy to dismiss such accounts as purely symbolic myths. After all, many cultures use myths to explain complex phenomena in simpler terms. But the precision and consistency of these accounts raise compelling questions. Could these ancient stories be distorted memories of something extraordinary but entirely human, or perhaps something else entirely? In the 20th century, a writer named Zecharia Sitchin brought these questions into mainstream attention. Sitchin proposed that the Anunnaki described in the Sumerian tablets weren't merely symbolic gods, but rather visitors from another planet, specifically one he called Nibiru. According to Sitchin's controversial interpretations, these visitors influenced humanity directly, teaching skills and advanced knowledge that dramatically accelerated human development. Now, it's important to clarify something crucial. Mainstream scholars almost universally reject Sitchin's theories. His translations are disputed, and many linguists argue he misunderstood or exaggerated key passages. Leading experts in Sumerian language and culture emphasize that no genuine academic evidence supports the literal interpretation of Anunnaki as alien visitors. Yet despite the strong skepticism, Sitchin's work resonated with many readers worldwide. Why? Perhaps because it tapped into something deeper: our natural curiosity about human origins and the unexplained mysteries of our past. And to be fair, some legitimate historical puzzles, like the Sumerians' advanced knowledge and sudden cultural emergence, still challenge historians. Even respected scholars admit gaps remain in our understanding. Let's take a moment to examine another interesting angle that grounds these theories in historical context. Some mainstream historians have acknowledged that ancient societies occasionally encountered more advanced cultures through exploration, trade, or migration, resulting in dramatic leaps forward. For instance, early European civilizations benefited greatly from interactions with advanced civilizations in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Could the Sumerians similarly have encountered an unknown advanced group? Maybe travelers from a distant region whose sophisticated technologies appeared godlike? Ancient cultures regularly viewed visitors with unfamiliar technology or knowledge as divine or supernatural. When Europeans first arrived in the Americas, many indigenous people initially perceived them as gods due to their technology and appearance. Could a similar misunderstanding have happened thousands of years earlier in Sumer? Perhaps the beings from above in Sumerian myths were simply visitors from a distant region, still human, but remarkably advanced compared to the early Sumerians. Let's briefly explore the archaeological context again. Sumer stood at the crossroads of numerous trade routes linking Africa, Asia, and Europe. It's conceivable that travelers or settlers from distant, unknown cultures could have shared knowledge unfamiliar and remarkable to the Sumerians. Over time, these encounters might have been mythologized into stories of celestial beings with extraordinary wisdom and abilities. Yet even this grounded explanation still doesn't fully solve every mystery. The precision and detail in certain Sumerian texts continue to puzzle scholars. Why did they consistently portray their knowledge as taught by beings descending from the sky? Could this simply be symbolic imagery, or might it suggest something else entirely? A historical event distorted over generations? Let's be very clear. Suggesting extraterrestrial visitors influenced ancient civilizations is controversial and unproven. But history constantly surprises us. Just decades ago, the idea of a sophisticated civilization dating back 12,000 years, as Göbekli Tepe now proves, would have seemed impossible. Could something similar be hiding behind these Sumerian stories? Something we haven't fully uncovered yet? We have to admit there's a genuine mystery here. While mainstream archaeology rightly emphasizes caution, skepticism, and rigorous evidence, ancient myths often contain fragments of truth, memories of real events that became exaggerated or symbolic over time. If we approach these ancient stories not as literal descriptions of aliens landing on Earth, but rather as distorted historical memories, could we get closer to understanding the real truth behind them? One intriguing Sumerian artifact, known as the cylinder seal VA-243, often cited in these debates, seems to show the solar system with remarkable accuracy at a time when telescopes didn't exist. While scholars debate whether it's genuinely a depiction of the planets, this seal continues to intrigue researchers. Could the seal represent astronomical knowledge taught by visitors? Or was it simply symbolic, misunderstood today? As wild as these ideas might seem, they raise some genuinely fascinating questions. Sure, the idea of ancient visitors coming down from the sky sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but the details hidden in these Sumerian tablets still leave historians scratching their heads. Could these ancient myths actually contain faint memories of real events, real people, or even something we haven't fully imagined yet? Now, don't get me wrong, there's no solid proof of flying saucers landing in ancient Mesopotamia, but history is packed full of surprises, and every year we uncover something that makes us rethink everything we thought we knew. Could the truth hidden in these ancient stories be stranger and more amazing than anyone has realized? Stick around, because we're about to dive deeper, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Scholarly debates and unanswered questions. Imagine you're trying to assemble a giant ancient puzzle, but half the pieces are missing, and the instructions are written in languages no one fully understands. That's exactly the situation historians and archaeologists face when dealing with ancient Sumer and the mysterious Annunaki. Sure, we found thousands of clay tablets, beautifully carved artifacts, and incredibly detailed stories, but we're still nowhere near having the full picture. And to make things even trickier, experts often can't even agree on what the completed puzzle should look like. So let's dive into some of these scholarly debates. One major area of contention revolves around translations. Translating ancient texts isn't like translating French or Spanish into English. Languages like Sumerian haven't been spoken for thousands of years, and words often have multiple meanings. Even small differences in translations can lead to entirely different interpretations. For instance, Scholars still argue over the precise meaning of phrases describing the Anunnaki. Do they literally mean beings who descended from the heavens? Or is that just poetic language meant to highlight royal status or divine favor? It's a subtle difference, but the implications are huge. And speaking of translation debates, let's briefly talk about Zecharia Sitchin, probably the most famous and definitely the most controversial translator of Sumerian texts. Sitchin popularized the idea that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial visitors who came to Earth and shared advanced knowledge with humans. While his books captivated millions of readers, most mainstream scholars are pretty skeptical about his translations. In fact, many linguists argue Sitchin mistranslated keywords and concepts to fit his theories. Yet despite these criticisms, his interpretations continue to spark debate, showing just how tricky ancient languages can be. Beyond translation, another huge problem historians face is gaps in the archaeological record itself. Think about it. We're relying on clay tablets and artifacts discovered thousands of years after they were buried. Countless tablets have been damaged, destroyed, or remain buried beneath sand and soil. Even the best preserved tablets rarely tell complete stories. Imagine finding a few pages torn from the middle of a book without a cover or ending. You're left guessing at the bigger picture, and that's precisely what archaeologists face. Because of this fragmented record, scholars often debate how literally we should take these ancient texts. For example, the Sumerians described planets and stars with startling accuracy, sometimes even referencing celestial bodies we didn't officially discover until modern times. Could they really have known about planets invisible to the naked eye? For instance, in some tablets interpreted by Sitchin and others, there's mention of a distant planet, sometimes called Nibiru, that supposedly orbits far beyond our current solar system's known planets. Now, mainstream astronomers strongly reject the existence of such a planet. Yet the Sumerians clearly describe some cosmic phenomena that modern science only recognized thousands of years later. That's genuinely puzzling and hard to simply dismiss. This is exactly where things get fascinating. Even mainstream historians who strongly disagree with extraterrestrial theories acknowledge the genuine mysteries embedded in these tablets. Many are comfortable attributing Sumerian astronomical accuracy to dedicated observation, but even the most skeptical scholars admit some aspects remain genuinely baffling. How could ancient sky watchers, without telescopes or modern equipment, track planetary movements so precisely, record accurate lunar cycles, and anticipate astronomical events? Interestingly, while researchers continue debating these mysteries, there's a curious reluctance among mainstream archaeology circles to deeply explore some of these unanswered questions. Now, we're not talking conspiracy theories here. Rather, it's about the cautious, conservative nature of academia. In professional circles, theories that deviate significantly from established historical timelines risk being quickly labeled as fringe or unscientific. Historians and archaeologists rely heavily on evidence and established methods, so it's understandable that they're cautious. But does this cautious approach sometimes prevent genuinely intriguing avenues of research? For example, take Göbekli Tepe, discovered just a few decades ago, which completely overturned our assumptions about ancient human capabilities. Before its discovery, experts confidently believed humans weren't building complex structures 11,000 years ago. Yet Göbekli Tepe's sophisticated stone pillars showed that civilization was far older and far more advanced than previously imagined. Could similar discoveries still be waiting beneath the sands of Mesopotamia? ready to rewrite history again? This raises an essential rhetorical question worth repeating. Should we dismiss these ancient accounts entirely simply because they're difficult to interpret, or should we keep digging deeper? The history of archaeology itself shows that dismissing strange or unusual findings often leads to overlooking crucial insights. After all, many ideas initially labeled as far-fetched eventually became mainstream once further evidence appeared. It's also important to consider how strongly ancient cultures believed in their myths. The Sumerians didn't view these stories as casual fairy tales. They were central to their lives, integrated into everything from religious rituals to agriculture and city planning. Could their deep belief imply these stories held some genuine historical memory, however distorted or exaggerated? Let's entertain another fascinating example: the Sumerians' remarkable mathematical system based on the number 60. To us, using 60 might seem arbitrary, but it's a highly effective mathematical system that simplifies complex calculations and fractions, especially useful in astronomy. We still use remnants of it today: minutes, seconds, and 360-degree circles. Where did the Sumerians get such a practical yet complex mathematical approach? Was it entirely their invention, or did they adapt it from an even earlier culture whose identity we haven't fully uncovered yet? This concept of older, lost civilizations influencing Sumer isn't as crazy as it might sound. Human history has repeatedly shown that cultures build on earlier foundations. Before the Greeks built their temples, the Egyptians constructed pyramids. Before the Egyptians, the Sumerians built ziggurats. And before Sumerians, could there have been even older societies now forgotten, whose wisdom influenced early civilizations in ways we've yet to fully understand? So let's revisit that big question: why does mainstream archaeology seem easy?